Awesome. I see some head nods. So thank you, Ellen, and thank you all for spending your morning with us today. I'm really excited to be here. Today is the big park meeting, and I'd like to begin with a few big ideas to kind of get us going a little bit in addition to our caffeine to get us excited about our time this morning. So my first big idea is this. Now more than ever, parks matter. The following passage, and if we'll go on to the next slide, was shared with each of the candidates currently running for mayor. With a handful of other partners, I met personally with each of the candidates to educate them on the importance of green space prior to a forum that will be happening in September. And we began each of those meetings with these words, which I think are relevant to this group. So here goes. Navigating the COVID-19 pandemic throughout 2020, 2021, Atlantans took to parks, trails, forests, and our rivers and creeks for refuge, fresh air, and sunshine, and to combat social isolation safely at a distance. Parks and recreation centers further served essential functions as food distribution points, testing sites, and distance learning centers. These flexible urban spaces emerged as critical infrastructure. Two key words there, critical or flexible and critical infrastructure, cornerstones of our community, which is equally important, that contribute to the resiliency of our city. As COVID-19 precautions have begun to relax, and again, we're not out of the woods yet, parks are once again on the front lines as places that people gather outdoors to connect with one another in greater numbers, to exercise on our trails and fields, and to adjust to social norms in free and open spaces. Now more than ever, we recognize green space as a vital component of a healthy, equitable, resilient, and thriving future Atlanta. Next slide. The second big idea I'd like to share with you is this. Now is the time. This is our parks moment. If there ever was a time to take parks and green space in our cities to the next level, this is that time. Peter Harnack, a big thinker who founded the Center for City Park Excellence at the Trust for Public Land, gave an insightful keynote address to address a national audience, his last before he retired in 2016. At the time, he identified longstanding chronic issues that plague urban park systems across the US. He spoke of a new urban parks movement as something that was just beginning to emerge, that he saw as the best and the most community responsive approach to resolving these issues. In that address, he highlighted 5 to 6 cities that he felt were on this path. They weren't there yet, but they had the critical pieces. Atlanta was one of those 5 to 6 cities, and it was the only one that was in the Southeast. And here are the components, as he saw it, of an urban parks movement. The first is a citywide parks and recreation department that does things differently. He gives the example of a parks commissioner where when a nonprofit like TPL had secured the resources to acquire a new park, the response from that parks director was, I don't have the resources to maintain the parks I have. Why would I want another park? And so doing things differently isn't just looking at what you can control. It's looking at ways that you work laterally across other city agencies. It's how you partner with groups, citywide parks nonprofits like Park Pride. It's all about the idea of managing above, sideways, and below. And I think that that's part of this new management paradigm for cities to deal with these mounting issues. The second is friends groups and conservancies for each park. And I put in parentheses here, advocate, activate, friend, and fundraise. And those are really the jobs for those different groups, not just identifying problems, but they're part of the solutions. For the parks that have conservancies, those are those entities. For the groups that have friends, or for the parks that have friends groups, they are that solution. But the main point here is they're there to lift the load. They're there to challenge the city. They're there to invite others to be a part of it and to bring resources to the table. The third is a citywide parks foundation to bring additional philanthropic support to parks throughout the system. Signature iconic parks are great. So are local parks and parks where people live. So there needs to be a conduit to get to those resources. And I like to think that Park Pride has served that role and could play a larger role moving forward. And last, you need a citywide umbrella organization to support the friends groups and to organize for citywide park advocacy. Support is recognizing. I can remember a friend's person looking around the room and saying, how many folks here have ever built a park before? Nobody has? Well, then maybe we need to listen to Park Pride. Secondly, on the advocacy side of things, I think of showing up with our green shirts at budget hearings and having folks within the city refer to that as the Green Shirt Army, or the only department with its own cheering section. So we are the cheerleaders for that cheering section. We are the ones that help to organize the Green Shirt Army, and it's all recognizing that you are the advocates for your park, but we're there to try to harmonize the system to get everyone out there to show that parks matter throughout the system. The last thing that I'll share before I move on this off from the slide is that my final big idea, which is this: each of you matter. Local parks groups are the key ingredient in those things that I just handled, because they're the key to making sure that the investments that we make in parks are the right investments. They're community supported investments. And that's why it may be more difficult in some respects not to take the top-down approach that is well-resourced, but where we get to is something that is more responsive to communities. And that is why Peter Harnick saw this as the solution to the chronic issues facing not just Atlanta, but urban systems across the US. So kind of moving forward, I will say that kind of leads me to Park Pride and our role in 3 and 4. And I think the main point to hear here is that we're here, much like the Parks Department, to support you. Next slide goes into a little bit of, and some of this is information you already know, but I think it's worth reiterating. Our mission: to engage communities to activate the power of parks. Two things there. It's not just about parks, it's about community, and it's about supporting and engaging communities to respond to this need. Our vision is an Atlanta where every neighborhood has access to a great park. And our values, community, equity, inclusion, collaboration, and trust all point to the how we work. The next few slides, and I'm going to go on to the next one, looks at the ways that we're looking at how we work and how we're going to work with you for the remainder of this year. So we've done some things to change up our 7:30 in the morning in-person meetings. As COVID happened, we've really taken to Zoom, but we have a structure that I'd like to outline to you on how we'd like to engage. I'd also encourage you to take this as an opportunity to redouble your efforts as we're trying to provide some clarity on the way that we're approaching this. A mainstay of this that I think will continue beyond the pandemic are virtual park meetings every other month. So these meetings will occur the second Wednesday of every month. They give us a chance to get folks throughout our 4 service areas into a common room. It also, for those that are juggling family and work, it gives us an efficient way to get folks together in a way that doesn't have that travel time. So every other month we'll be doing that. We also recognize the benefits of showing up in place. And so every other month we're going to have meetings in person in parks where we'll go to a different park. And I think these are trying to rekindle that sense that we give a chance to elevate groups that are doing great work. And you could hear about that on a Zoom call, but you're going to learn a lot more if you show up in person. I think this is also a chance for those groups to kind of toot their own horn, to practice their pitch to a larger group, and to invite both their own neighbors and surrounding parks to understand their efforts. There's a saying I'm fond of that when people talk about those things as preaching to the choir, that the choir needs practice. So I look at these 6 meetings a year as choir practice to get us together and to harmonize on our priorities, hearing from the communities themselves at different parks throughout the year. Next slide goes into our workshops. So these are places for technical hands-on training, skill building, clearing invasives, trail building, also ways of working with government officials and marketing. Depending on a number of factors, both the content as well as the pandemic, these could be either virtual or in person. The next one of those is going to be happening in December. I'd invite you to take place in the workshops. Next slide, and this is something that I alluded to, and Tori's going to put into the chat some links that relate to the mayoral forum on green space. A little bit about how we've approached this compared to prior years. When I first came to Park Pride, we had something known as the Park Pledge. And I was really proud when I got there that we had made it so that they were so succinct that they all fit on a postcard. And there were only 4 or 5 ideas that had things like parks should be safe, crime-free areas, everyone should live in within access to a park. Park should be well maintained. And we would ask candidates as well as partner organizations to sign the park pledge. And what I found was we spent a lot of time focusing our efforts on building the list, reaching out to the candidates that were disorganized and not paying attention. And meanwhile, the folks that were willing to engage with us on the complexity, and these are tough issues, what we found was we kind of gave them a free pass. And so we've started a different approach that began 4 years ago, which first off looks broader than just parks. So we helped to engage a coalition of like-minded organizations that were all on paths of doing different forums of their own to say, let's work together. Let's look at not just parks, but parks, trails, trees, watersheds, and equity. And 13 different partners came together as the initial hosts for a forum that's happening in September. It's a virtual forum. This is a list of the partner organizations. And in advance of that meeting, those groups actually met in person at Piedmont Park with each of the different candidates for 60 minutes to go over a briefing book that took our efforts of restraint, not getting into all the issues that we want the next mayor to deal with. But if we had, again, limited bandwidth, what are the most important ones? For our work at Park Pride, the two issues that are core are park maintenance and also the idea of park access. And then I would say a third of looking at ways that the city can be the best partner it could be to the conservancies and the friends groups. And so that you will see is about half of these questions. You'll notice that there weren't questions for each organization. We're sharing that and making that public. And you'll notice the paragraph at the very beginning, which you're welcome to lift and share, really talks about this parks moment as I did at the beginning of this talk. I also will mention that if you want to share this with any of your district candidates that are wondering about the issues in the city of Atlanta, I invite you to do the same. If you want to adopt this or adapt this in other jurisdictions as a starting point, and also to invite our feedback on ways to use this, again, not as the last word, but the first word on educating the candidates. We're hoping that this will lead to less sound bites and more thoughtful responses at our forum on September 8th. Jocelyn Dorsey from WSB will be our moderator. Couple of things you can do today, in addition to checking out the supporter report column that talks about a green cabinet, reading the briefing document, is to register for the forum and also to formally add your friends group or conservancy to the growing list of partners that are helping to spread the word. So those links are in the chat. They're also available off of our website. You will get an email. I would encourage you to share that with other friends within your friends group, with your conservancy boards, with your neighbors, with anybody you can think of, because this is our parks moment. And part of this moment is recognizing that those that are on this call alone are not going to live up to the full promise of our vision. So, so please join us with the forum. The next slide highlights some of the different calendar events that I've just referenced. You'll notice the dates that we have for the forum, the Green Space Gathering. We have a fundraising workshop. We have a virtual park meeting, again, that will be virtual, a Green Space Gathering that's in person. We have a volunteer workshop. We're also in the throes of putting together a roundtable. So a few surprises before the end of the year. Next slide, just to kind of leave you with another big idea. This year, our theme for the Parks and Green Space Conference was the new case for parks. What we heard from folks was they love the content, they miss the personal interaction. So we are making every effort to return to the garden, health restrictions permitting, for an in-person garden, the tulips in bloom, and your ideas blooming as well. But the theme which we have selected, the Parks We Need Now, really draws from the new case for parks, and it moves beyond the case making and into the action. And I think today's meeting is about rolling up our sleeves and all the action we can take in today's big park meeting. So with that, just to recap, my big ideas are parks matter. Now is the time, and you matter. And there's lots of opportunities to engage with Park Pride beyond this meeting. And we invite you not just to pick one or two, but really to use this as our parks movement, to turn up the volume as we do the same, to see what we can do to change those chronic issues that we all struggle with, to move to a better plateau through the remainder of this year and really to celebrate together at next year's conference. Thank you for allowing me the time, and I will be here for the remainder of the meeting, so feel free to chat with me individually or to share your thoughts to continue this conversation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael. Next slide. So some of you may know that Park Pride's community building team welcomed 2 new program associates this spring. Most of you have already met one or more of us, but for those who haven't, please allow us to introduce ourselves. We're going to go left to right as we appear on your screen. So I'll start. I'm Ellen Brunderman. I'm the Director of Community Building at Park Pride. I joined the staff in 2015 as a volunteer coordinator while I was studying behavioral science and health education at Emory School of Public Health. And I've held a few other positions in my 6 years at Park Pride, and I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful to have worked with many incredible community members like you all, as well as our partners. And now I get to work with these 2 lovely new team members.
Thanks, Ellen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cecilia Borgman. As Ellen said, I'm a part of the community building team. So I work alongside Ellen and Tori on all things friends groups. So from getting new groups oriented to helping you guys be connected to grant opportunities and different things, we are here to support. We also help with volunteer. So as we're working with corporate groups who are wanting to get outside and into their parks, as well as connecting you all with volunteer resources, from tools to volunteer matching. That's another service we're happy to provide. So just glad to be with all of you this morning and looking forward to more conversations.
Last but not least, good morning, you all. I'm Tori Garrett. I'm the newest program associate on the team, probably about 3 months in now. Enjoying my time here at Park Pride. I actually was an intern last summer under Andrew and Terry, so got my ropes in at Park Pride pretty early, and I want to keep them there for a while. So looking forward to meeting you all in person or virtually at some point, and want to enjoy the big park meeting today. Have a great day, you all.
All right, so Cecilia mentioned we're the staff behind Friends of the Park and volunteer. We also administer our Community Gardens Initiative and the Adopt the Park program in the city of Atlanta. And like all of you, we've been doing our best to adapt to this kind of scary sci-fi movie that we're all living in. So we thank you very much for sticking with us. And we were really hoping that we could come together in person this year at the big park meeting. But of course, we value your health and your safety very highly. So we changed our plans at the last minute and we opened up the Zoom room once again. So I'm going to turn it over to Cecilia now to talk about the plan for the day and how we came up with the theme and our breakout topics.
Thanks, Ellen. So as Ellen and Michael both shared, the world is changing around us, and all of our communities have really been persevering through this ongoing pandemic. And as a team, we've watched how priorities for green spaces have been shifting and evolving. We've seen increased foot traffic on our trails and playgrounds and recreation facilities. And those things have brought attention to the issues of safety, accessibility, inclusion, and a need for more historical preservation and a celebration of our cultures. As a team, we thought, how can we bring our community together of park leaders to share, inspire, and create solutions? And how can we elevate the amazing work that you all are doing as friends groups and local organizations? And so just as all of you are working together to build community through parks, we wanted to hold space for this community. That's why we selected community cohesion for this year's big park meeting theme. Like Michael alluded to, we want to be all on the same page, working as efficiently and as well together as we possibly can to advocate for green spaces and parks. Specifically, we've decided to hone in on these 3 topics that you'll see on the screen that we really feel like contribute to a cohesive community. That's awareness, placekeeping, and access. So in today's sessions, you'll hear from friends groups who are just beginning their journey in awareness building, access and placekeeping, and others who have years and years of experience under their belt activating their parks. You'll have a chance to workshop some issues unique to your green space, while also providing feedback to others looking for inspiration. Next slide. So this is what the day will look like at a glance. So we're right now in the welcome and the kickoff. We're also then going to pass it over to our visioning team and hear about some design processes and learn how design is kind of an integral part in making access placekeeping, and awareness integral to our parks. We're then going to have some breakout sessions. We're going to talk more in depth about these 3 subgroups. So definitely keep your eye out for these breakout groups. Maybe be thinking about what conversations you want to be having later. You will have the option to kind of choose which of the breakout groups you'd like to join. And then we'll have a closing where we're going to share some resources with you all about how to continue to keep the momentum going in your parks and how to make some adaptations given the Delta variant. Next slide, please. Excellent. So this is just a high-level overview of the breakout groups. So we're going to have all sorts of presentations and conversations in these breakout groups. So each breakout group is going to have a few design presentations. So Ellen and Andrew will talk about this a little bit more, but we've combined the design workshop with this year's Big Park meeting. So you're going to be hearing from friends groups who just received really amazing designs from landscape architects and professionals who are addressing these big issues. You're going to hear from folks who just creatively came up with ideas to address these issues. And then you're also going to be hearing from folks who are more seasoned, friends groups who have projects that have happened over the years. And you're also going to have a chance to listen to Atlanta City Studio. Now, like I said before, you're going to choose one of the 3 to go to, but we will be recording these sessions. So you will have the chance to go back and rewatch. So there's going to be good stuff in each of the sessions. So don't worry, you won't miss out on any of those good tidbits. Fabulous. And then I'll pass it back over to Ellen.
All right, thanks, Cecilia. So in planning for today's event, we considered what we've been hearing and learning from friends groups and our conservancy partners over the last several months. And it was great timing because we have just wrapped up the annual Friends of the Park check-in. And that survey is one of the most important tools we have to collect that information from you. So we're going to run a quick poll of the audience right now to see how many of you have done a check-in with Park Pride. And I'm going to launch that poll. You should see that on your screen now. All right, and while you answer that, I'm going to take a little bit more time to talk about the check-in. So we do these surveys every summer, usually in person in your parks with the help of a community building intern. And those results provide us with kind of a snapshot of what's happening in park stewardship across our service area. And we use this information to report to government partners, funders, and other interested audiences, as well as to improve our programming to better meet your needs. So let's check out those results. I'm going to go ahead and move us along. All right, so a pretty good spread here. Let's share those results. I see 8 of you said yes, that you participated this year, and those of you who did will remember our wonderful intern, Camila Sanchez. She not only did the Friends of the Park check-in, but she also worked with our partners at Foodwell Alliance to check in with our community garden groups in the city of Atlanta. So this summer we checked in with 22 Friends of the Park groups and 8 community garden groups. And Camilla's internship ended last week, but she very kindly put together a brief video summarizing the results of the Friends of the Park check-in analysis, and we're going to share that with you right now.
Hi guys, some of you may remember me, but I might be new to some of you, so I'm just going to introduce myself really quick. My name is Camila Sanchez, and I was Park Pride's community building intern this summer. Before I get into my presentation, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm now a junior at Georgia Tech, and I'm studying civil and environmental engineering. I met Park Pride through Georgia Tech's Serve, Learn, Sustain program, and so far it's been an amazing experience. This summer at Park Pride, my job was to assist the community building team, including Ellen, Cecilia, and Tori, in conducting this year's Friends of the Park survey. Today's presentation is going to be a short slideshow of some of the data I gathered and how it's relevant to Park Pride as well as other Friends of the Park Pride groups. If you don't see some of the questions we asked on the slideshow, don't worry about it. All pieces of the survey are important to Park Pride, and they're going to be used to help us in the future, even if you don't see them on this PowerPoint. Based on the data I gathered by late June, we have surveyed at least 22 Friends of the Park groups, with 10 being in DeKalb, 9 being in Atlanta, 2 being in Tucker, and 1 being in Brookhaven. One of the questions we asked involved group activities. And so what we did is we split group activities into 5 groups: maintenance, capital improvements, advocacy and civic engagement, park activation, and fundraising. You can see here that most parks did most, if not all, activities, with a few groups having some variations in events and civic engagement. This next slide talks a little bit about how some of the parks we interviewed felt that they had impacted their community. Overall, most park groups we met with felt that they had had a positive impact, especially during the busier, earlier COVID times. Some parks felt that they had really transformed the area, which is incredible. As you can see, COVID has a great impact when it came to park priorities. It has shown an increased need for parking, waste bins, and maintenance. This was because of parks acting as a sort of safe haven among these groups and bringing in more attention to these parks in the last year. On the other end, COVID has really slowed down or even stopped projects from happening or finishing, and it's been really difficult for these existing projects to finish. This next slide talks about how groups feel about in-person events. I would like to preface this by saying that Park Pride is not pressuring anyone or any group at all to hold in-person events. This question is more for us to understand how certain groups felt about in-person events. As you can see, many groups have held at least one event, and some are planning on holding events that haven't happened yet, while a good portion of groups are not quite ready to hold events, which is perfectly okay. Switching gears, Park Pride was interested in knowing how many of our friends groups interacted with or knew at least one other person from other friends groups. We would like to know how our friends group interact and if we could possibly facilitate more of these interactions. As you can see, 18 of 22 groups surveyed have had at least one connection. And of those 18, 14 of them felt as though their connection impacted the work within their own friends group. Here are some examples of how some groups were impacted. For the most part, groups only benefit from having these connections. Many feel it is beneficial to be able to talk to and discuss problems within their parks. And it may lead to other parks implementing possible solutions for similar problems. And here are some ways that groups believe we as Park Pride can help them achieve their goals. I won't go super in depth, however, I will talk about the main points that we discovered groups would like more help with. We've discovered that groups want a lot of help with community engagement, as in some areas, it has been found that it is very difficult to get the neighborhood to interact with and participate in events or volunteer days involving the park. Community engagement is extremely important to Park Pride, and we are always working on improving community engagement, and we will always continue to hold workshops to assist and provide resources for these issues. As always, communication is key. Secondly, many parks feel the need for more physical support, such as tools, manpowers, or just techniques. Things like invasives are always causing major problems within the parks. And it is something that Park Pride is willing to provide resources and possible tools for solving issues like this. We also have a volunteer support program that was put on hold for COVID, but we are also in the process of starting back up. Additionally, while we are not using our own tool bank, we will connect you with a tool bank that may assist you in any of the tools you need while we try to get our personal tool bank up and running. Lastly, we have realized that some parks seem to have reached most of their priorities and goals and would like to help other parks that may not have the resources or the support that they need. These larger parks would like to donate resources and possibly host fundraisers for these smaller parks. This is something we're currently looking into, as we think this would be super beneficial for some parks. Please let us know if this is something that you'd be interested in facilitating or joining. And as always, thank you so much to all of our supporters, and thank you for letting me take the time to survey all of you that I could survey. Please don't be afraid to ask me questions or ask the Park Pride team any questions if you need clarification on anything.
All right, well, we missed Camilla already. We got a lot of helpful information from this year's check-ins, and I just wanted to highlight a couple things. I won't go into everything that's on your screen, but I did want to touch on two things. So Michael mentioned earlier, we're ramping up our advocacy activity in the city of Atlanta. We got a whole lot of feedback, not just from Atlanta groups, but from all across our service area, that better working relationships with their local parks departments would be really helpful. So we'll be focusing on what role Park Pride can play in that, and that includes working with the city of Atlanta to revisit Parks Department quarterly briefings, which some of you may remember and a number of you have brought up. So I wanted to let you know that we've heard that and we are working with the Parks Department to try to make that happen. I also wanted to mention that our December workshop is going to be an advanced session on invasives management. So we heard a lot about invasives. We also heard that a lot of you are ready for more advanced learning content. So that's one way that we're going to respond to that need. Next slide. So we just wanted to say a huge thank you to Camilla again, and also to our partners at Foodwell Alliance and to all of you who participated in the check-in this summer. Next slide. So Cecilia mentioned the park design workshop, which is led by our fantastic park visioning staff, Terry Nye and Andrew White. And this year we're incorporating it into the big park meeting. So now I'd like to introduce Andrew and Terry to talk about how park design can help bring communities together.
Awesome, thank you so much, Ellen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew White. We're pleased to join you this morning to spend just a few minutes talking about park design and share how community park planning can help enhance community cohesion. A little about us first. My name, as I said, is Andrew White. I'm on the visioning team at Park Pride. I've been here for 5 years. I'm a licensed landscape architect, and I've been practicing in Atlanta for 10 years. I started off in the private sector, working on plans for city and state parks, college campuses, government buildings, downtown streetscapes, and even military bases. Those projects were significantly less fun. I've been at Park Pride now for over 5 years, as I said, and have completed vision plans in 14 different parks in Atlanta and DeKalb County. I'm a people person, and I love getting to know folks in all of Atlanta's wonderful neighborhoods.
Hi, everyone. I'm Terry Nye, and I'm also a landscape designer with Park Pride's visioning team. I just celebrated my 5-year anniversary with Park Pride. And besides designing and drawing, I also love teaching people about plants. In fact, before I came to Park Pride, I taught at schools all around Georgia, including Furman Science Center and Brunel University. The best thing about being at Park Pride, though, is getting to know the communities and working together on their parks. Next slide, please.
So Terry and I are park planners, and park planning can sometimes be messy work. It's super important to make sure that your community is supportive of the projects that you're proposing. It's important to keep in mind public parks are for everyone and they belong to everyone. So your project has a much higher chance of success if you can demonstrate community support. One of the tools that Terry and I have developed over the years is the establishment of guiding principles at the outset of every park visioning process that we do to get communities to focus on a shared vision. So the idea is very simple. It's just we take time at the beginning of each planning process to articulate and examine the hopes of each person. And those can be their hopes for the visioning process, their hopes for their park, their hopes for the community. It's an exercise that encourages community members to share, and it also encourages listening to others. Listening is one of the most powerful things we can do to bridge divides and to negotiate a constructive path forward.
That's right, Andrew. Park Pride's visioning team makes sure the community's hopes remain important by transforming them into a set of guiding principles. These guiding principles become a touchstone for the community if conflict arises during the park planning process. Every specific choice that is made in the planning process must support one or more of the guiding principles. These guiding principles can also help calm fears that the park planning process will result in changes that are contrary to the desires of the community. Next slide, please. As the visioning team has worked in parks over the years, we've helped communities develop many sets of guiding principles that reflect their unique hopes and aspirations. We've seen some common trends emerge as well. These trends give us insight into the common park issues and values in and around Atlanta.
Right, we've put some of the most common kinds of guiding principles up here for you guys to see. One of the things we see a lot is people value their trees. Most every park vision plan includes protection and enhancement of mature trees, as well as planting new trees to become the canopy trees of tomorrow. Communities also tend to prioritize clear entrances, safe pedestrian and bicycle circulation to and through the park. Adequate park maintenance is another thing we hear about frequently. Without adequate funding for maintenance, parks can fall into disrepair, and it creates a backlog that never really goes away, even when budgets are later restored. So next slide.
In addition to working with communities to set goals, we frequently dig into the historical resources at the Keenan Research Center at the Atlanta History Center. They have built a fantastic collection of historical resources that tell the story of everyday life in Atlanta. The collections turn out to be invaluable resources for community building. In a time when friction can quickly arise between newcomers and long-term residents, the maps, photographs, and news clippings spark conversations and build relationships. Neighborhood newcomers are eager to learn about the places that they've chosen to make their homes, and legacy residents have a wealth of memories and experiences to share. Exploring history can have a unifying effect on residents who are engaged in building a space for their common future.
Well, that's right. So one thing Terry and I have learned is that no park, even brand new ones, are blank slates. Each site has a story that's somehow connected to the broader story of Atlanta or even to the United States. History can also be an entry point into uncomfortable conversations about racial inequity. In a southern city like Atlanta, we come across artifacts and parks all the time that remind us of the difficult history of racial injustice, like filled-in swimming pools that were closed in the 1960s rather than be integrated. We see Civil War memorials in parks that tell incomplete stories, and some places that are named after people whose stories have been forgotten, both good and bad. So through visioning, we try to find these park stories, photographs, and drawings that will help make the stories of our parks more complete. And this is something that you guys can do too. Next slide.
Thanks. If any of this is striking a chord for you, I highly recommend a recent report from the City of Atlanta's Department of City Planning. The report is called Every Park Tells a Story, and it's part of their Future Places project. It's one of the most comprehensive looks at how the park system in Atlanta has gotten to be where it is today. Now, I'll warn you, it's not a short read, but it's super interesting for those of us who are personally invested in Atlanta's park system. And it's going to be a go-to resource for us, especially in going forward. You can find it online at www.atlfutureplaces.com. And we're going to put a link in the chat as well. Next slide, please.
Yep. But so that's a great place to start. And if you read through that report and you're thirsty for more, there are these great libraries and resources in Atlanta, and I think Tori's been putting links to all of them in the chat. And those are places that have archival collections that are available to the public. Those are photographs, documents, reports. We've listed a few here on this slide, and if you want to conduct a little research about your own park or neighborhood, we encourage you to do so. And if you find something, we also encourage you to share that with your neighbors. You could even create like a historical sign to go into your park and share it with us too. We love nerding out on park history.
Also, if you guys do come across a cache of old photographs of your neighborhood, please consider making copies of those and donating them to one of these institutions. They would absolutely love that. Next slide, please. Once you have your goals all set, the community is supportive, and you've done some research on the history of your park, it's time to develop your ideas into a design. This is a great time to call your friends at Park Pride or the Parks Department to schedule a site visit. We can help you think through the next steps or connect you with folks who can help. You develop these into a drawing, which is some of what we've done today. If your project is on a larger side, we would send you to someone who could help you develop a full set of construction documents. That means that your project will need a professional designer like a landscape architect or an engineer to develop a set of drawings that can be permitted through the proper authorities. These come at a cost, which you may need to build into your budget. Next slide, please.
Another thing that's very important to keep in mind is that your ideas for park improvements must be approved by the proper authorities before you make any changes. So each jurisdiction handles community-based park projects a little differently. So it's a good idea to reach out to them early in the process. And this slide has the contact information for the 4 jurisdictions that we work in. But if you reach out to us, we can certainly connect you with those folks as well. So next slide. Now, as Cecilia said, we're about to separate into 3 breakout groups based on the themes of access, placekeeping, and awareness. And this year, there will be 2 design presentations from friends groups in each breakout session. So these 6 groups applied to Park Pride back in June to participate in this year's park design workshop. And so we paired each of those groups with a volunteer landscape architect, and those landscape architects met with the friends of groups in the park and then developed conceptual design recommendations for their park or green space based on that conversation. The access group will include presentations from Holly Street Park and Beaverbrook Park. The placekeeping group will include English Park and Chosewood Park. And finally, the awareness group will have presentations from DeKalb Washington Park and Cleopas R. Johnson Park. And I really want to take just a second, next slide, just to recognize and thank the landscape architects who volunteered their time and their work for this workshop. Sarah Boyer, Matt Cherry from Lord X Sargent, Stephen Bush from Bush Landscape Architecture, Jay Wozniak from the Trust for Public Land, Samantha Spitali from Spitali Studios, Pedro Torres, he's with the Foresight Group, and Roger Wells and Laurel Fox from Breedlove Land Plan. Thank you guys so much.
Building team is going to close us out with a couple of things coming up, resources we're going to be offering you, and I'm going to turn it over to Tori to talk a little bit about what's new with our volunteer program.
Put my video on. How are you all doing again? So this is just another reminder of our contact information, Ellen, Cecilia, and I, just in case you want to get in contact with us directly after this event. That is our information. Next slide, please. So as we are branching back into the new world, we are very excited to getting back into the volunteer program. And here are some ways that we can help support your friends of parks. We have some contacts. I'm sorry about that. We're excited. We're happy to have. I apologize, you all. We're happy to come out to your park and help you think through some of your upcoming projects, including planning scopes of work and getting approval from your local parks department. We also have contacts at some local tree and companies and can request mulch deliveries to your park for mulching projects. While we can't guarantee you wood chips, these companies are pretty thankful to have somewhere to drop off mulch from their tree work. So just a reminder, these are free chips and aren't necessarily as nice as the mulch you would get from your garden center at Lowe's. We also want to come to your work days. We'd like to dedicate 1 to 2 times per month to attending community volunteer days, both with experienced groups and with any of you who might want to start hosting work days but need a little help. Please reach out to us if you'd like to invite us to any upcoming volunteer work days that you are having. Finally, Park Pride has been a member of the Atlanta Tool Bank for many years, and we would like to offer interested friend groups accounts under our membership. This would allow your group to place their own tool orders and schedule your own pickup and return appointments without having to pay for an annual membership. Speaking of the Tool Bank, we have Carol Honeycutt, manager of the Volunteer and Workhouse, here to talk more about their services. Let's all welcome Carol.
Thanks, Tori. And I'm not sure if we have Carol on with us. Carol, are you here? Okay. I don't see her, so I'm going to cover her portion just really briefly. So Tori mentioned, we are members of the Tool Bank. We pay for an annual membership. And one thing that the Tool Bank offers to some organizations is sort of sub accounts under their umbrella membership. So that would, we would offer that to friends groups. You would have your own kind of login information, but that'd still be under our account. But that way you can place your own tool orders. You can set your appointments for pickup and return, and you don't have to work through us to do that. So we would work with the Tool Bank to kind of put parameters around that. They have like a lot of power tools and some other things that we might not want to make available to friends groups. So we would kind of decide how, what tools would be available under this sub membership. But I will say that they have tons and tons of different tools. They also have event supplies like chairs and tables and those little canopy tents and all kinds of things like that. So we could consider making those available to you as well. So, this wouldn't just help you with work days, but you could also rent things for your events in your parks. So we will be sending more information out about that in our upcoming emails. And we'll send Carol's email address if you wanted to ask her specific questions about the Tool Bank. And you can see that on the bottom of your screen, atlanta@toolbank.org. You're welcome to reach out directly to her if you have questions about that, but look out for more information.
Ellen, you got a question in the chat about whether you can still get tools in Scottsdale. Can we still get tools at the Park Pride offices in Scottsdale?
That's a great question. So that is the DeKalb County tool shed. Officially right now it is closed because that office at Chestnut in Scottsdale is still closed. So we're keeping in touch with our friends in DeKalb, and we'll let you all know DeKalb groups once that's officially available. But if you're a DeKalb group and the Atlanta Tool Bank is a little inconvenient for you, definitely still reach out to us if you would like help with tools, and we can work with you to make that happen. So great question. And Cecilia, thank you for bringing that forward.
And thank you, Ellen, for covering for Carol. And
Not a problem.
we will be sharing more information about how to take advantage of the Tool Bank account in our upcoming Friends of the Park emails that we send out. So also please be on the lookout for that and reach out to us if you have any questions.
Thanks, Tori, for being flexible. I think we can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to kind of slow things down just a little bit and take this moment to recognize all of the incredible things that friends groups and conservancies and other park-based nonprofits do for parks and communities. And, we know how hard you all work to care for your parks, to plan, to raise money for new projects, to bring communities together, to host events and activities, to advocate for your parks and your neighborhoods. And we just wanted to acknowledge how challenging that can be at times, even in the best of times, but especially in the face of things like pandemics and economic downturns and government budget cuts and inequity and injustice. You name it, the list goes on. And your dedication to your park stewardship and your resilience really inspires us to continue to do this work. And we hope you inspire each other as well. We know that your efforts not only benefit your group and your park and your neighbors, but everyone who visits your parks benefits from the work you do. So I think I can safely speak for Park Pride's entire staff and board when I say thank you so much for everything you do. And if you all feel like sharing any words of encouragement or gratitude with Friends of the Park groups and park nonprofits who care for our park system, I highly encourage you to put that in the chat right now and just lift each other up a little bit, because we've all been dealing with a lot of challenges lately. So this photo that you see on your screen is of the Friends of Jenny Drake Park. This is at their MLK Day workday. And I think it really shows that, things have looked very different over the past year and a half. You can see they're wearing masks, they're distanced, they're in a pretty small group. This is kind of how our upcoming green space gatherings are going to look in person. We're choosing to err on the side of caution. We want to protect your safety and our safety. So we're going to be taking some steps like distancing, encouraging masks and things like that. But we're really looking forward to the day where we can all really be together as a big group in person. And we know that you all are as well. You'll see on your screen, our first green space gathering is on October 14th. That's going to be in DeKalb County. We had the most participation in the check-in this year from DeKalb County Friends groups. So we're going to start there with our green space gatherings, and we'll be sharing more information about that soon. So now I'll turn it over to Cecilia to remind you of a couple other upcoming opportunities and to close out the big park meeting.
Thanks, everyone. We've just got a few minutes left. We're going to stay on as a team. So, I know Mother Moore wants to have a chance to kind of speak out if other people want to share. Marlena, you might have to tweak some things so that she can unmute herself at that point. But we will stick on a little bit after 11:30. So folks who want to kind of keep hanging out or ask questions to us, feel free to kind of hang out with us for a few minutes. Michael had put this screen up a little bit earlier, but just wanted to put this back up so that everyone can kind of see what's coming up next. You guys can, of course, always visit our website and the events calendar to kind of see what's coming up next. As Michael shared, we're going to be oscillating between virtual and in person. So every other month, we're going to have something that's either in person or that's virtual. So be on the lookout for those types of programming. We're really excited. Of course, we're having a few more workshops and roundtables this year. So I'm trying to put in as much education and networking opportunities before the end of 2021. I'm also going to just plug a reminder. We're going to follow up this meeting with a few different things. We're going to come up with recordings for y'all, with resources. I know that for my access group, folks wanted to be connected. So I'll put together a full list of everyone that was in our access breakout room so you guys can kind of communicate, and we'll do that for the other breakout rooms as well. We'll also have some feedback forms. So if you guys want to give us some thoughts, how did this program go? Let us know, what could have been better, what you really liked. We really always want to hear from you all because we want and are constantly improving our programs so that it meets y'all's needs. So if this hit the mark, we want to know. If it missed the mark, we also want to know. So just keep us informed about how we're doing and how we can, continue to adapt. We're also going to include an interest form from the tool bank. So if you're interested in learning more about how do you get a sub account under the tool bank so you can just plug and go and make your own tool orders, we'll have a little interest form so you can let us know if you want to know more about that. And Marlena, if you just want to go to the last slide, just wanted to thank you all. Thank you for being present with us this morning. Thank you for being advocates for green spaces and for pushing us and your city agencies to continue to push for parks. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of the boots on the ground. You know these spaces better than anyone, and we're just so grateful to have you guys be in our community and to be in support. So we're going to hang on here for a few minutes. Mother Moore, if you want to say some pieces about advocacy, we would love to hear from you. And just thank you guys so much for being a part of this community.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to speak out again to the whole group that Michael, we're like a family as far as I'm concerned, and we need to be united in our advocacy. And one of the things that we still need to do is to make sure that we are united around the city being very conscious about the under-resourced neighborhoods and what gets done to use parks to rebuild those neighborhoods, rebuild community. And it's in that context that you all won me, that parks can do that. So the success of Park Pride can easily be seen where there are neighborhoods, as Judd and Weston and Beth and us talked about, in access, because they have the gifts of people there and they have the human resources, the financial resources. But a greater challenge for us as a family, as a community, is when we have been able to show how our parks have contributed to the rebuilding of healthy, sustainable, poor neighborhoods. And so we need to, in our mayoral world, put some heat on our elected officials in terms of their attention to that element of rebuilding our Atlanta. Because if any part of us is not healthy, then none of us is healthy. So I just wanted to input that to bring to the forefront that I see us as a united advocacy force in that way.